Good evening, this is Grandmaster Jerry Fassi, fortunate with another episode of MMA Power Talk, Sport Karate Illustrated at the Dojine, Dojo in the hand, teaching you things that actually work. You imagine that. Well, today I have the honest pleasure of speaking to one of my brothers from another mother, a gentleman who I look up to, even though he's shorter than me. Even to the point when I was a junior, he was a top competitor black belt doing musical forms, stars, and striped uniforms. Well, we're talking about back in the late 70s and early 1980s. This gentleman has become a top competitor, coach, school owner, et cetera, and a wonderful father. Now, when it's all said and done, not many people have been able to cross over to different aspects of the martial arts, so he is definitely a Renaissance man. As an example, opened up a karate school at a very young age, but started studying how to run a business before he even did that. Smart move. In addition to that, for many years, he ran a successful operation with 6 figures out of a place that had a very low income. I was kind of jealous about that. Anyway, without further ado, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer a lot of these questions, Master Garth Benz. Are you there, sir?
I'm here. Thank you.
No,
how's everything?
Very welcome. Hey, listen, I got a jump start on life because I'm alive, baby. You know, counting my blessings here.
That's good. I'm glad to hear.
You know how that is. Well, listen, let's just do a fake reposition and blitz because I know it's kind of late. We started this conversation yesterday and it's ready tomorrow. So, that being the case, 3 questions or options. What was your inspiration or desperation or motivation when it comes to training in martial arts? And please understand, I put myself on mute, so you have the mic. There you go.
All right. Let's see. My initial inspiration was Bruce Lee movies. That's my initial inspiration. I was watching Bruce Lee movies like everybody else, and I actually wanted to take his place. So I figured in order to take Bruce Lee's place, I would have to beat him. So that was my initial reason for wanting to start the martial arts. Going to the movies with my brother from another mother, John Jackson, and we decided that we wanted to take his place. So we started training. I asked my dad to look around, and we found a couple of instructors, and my father made a deal for having the instructor to come to our location and teach us. So that's the reason why I got started, and that's how I got started way back in the early 1970s.
Well, can you share with me, and I do know a little information about, first, your dad, who's able to negotiate deals just about with anybody, including the guy who's drowning and, selling water. So that's a trait that hopefully I'll be able to develop someday. But what style was it? And again, sir, I know the answers, but this is not my power talk. This is your history. So talk to me.
Right. It was the original style I started with Japanese Kitsugen, which the founder of that is Erskine Matthews from out of Long Island. And my original instructor was Master Isaac Seals. So my original style was Japanese Kitsugen, and that's a combination of Shotokan and Goju.
And we're talking about from that operation, we might as well do some shout-outs right now because I believe there was a gentleman by the name of Ken Riley, that actually fought Benny Akitas and a whole bunch of other people from now in the Bronx and originally from Manhattan, Long Island, Brooklyn, Public Enemy. Let's do some shout-outs there, buddy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that came from the Long Island area. Like you said, people from Public Enemy, Master Farad, who came down. His student is Master Michael Dean, Steve Sobers, Master Eugene, Buster Barnett. A lot of guys came out of Kitsugen from either Long Island, Hempstead, and then also moving into the Bronx. Well,
I remember the Delgado brothers in Manhattan also. I remember guys like Wildcat, right? Cruz. I remember guys like, man, let me tell you something. There's so many people. If we there you go. On and on and on. Wizard, we must give credit to Mr. Dynamite, Michael Dean, which you already mentioned. However, that guy was one of the first ones, which we'll slightly talk about in the near future, but when New York had juniors competing, my man was taken up by any means necessary, and the descendants, obviously, of the Jesse Ray or the Ray brothers, all of them included, and sisters and students. True or false?
True, very true. Yeah,
so without the impact,
started out in Castle Hill Community Center.
Down the block from J-Lo.
Yeah, that's He started out there, and his daughter's name was Dynamite.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's the point that, when you really think about it, sir, maybe you never thought about it. If you eliminate the Kasugan warriors and descendants of from sport karate, then New York doesn't get the same representation. Even today, buddy.
No, you're right. Even today, actually, Kasugan warriors is dominating New York.
Dominant force on the national circuit, not just in New York. No, well, I'm sorry to have to remind you, these guys have been rated multiple times, multiple weight categories, whether they're students, or I should say, whether they're students and or instructors and brothers, plus promoters, and they're diversified in a variety of things. And I would have to probably say that one of the few people that created an influence for that was you, because even when Mr. Delgado came home, he was hanging out with us, not just for kicking and punching, but to learn how to do the business.
Oh, for the business part, yeah. He basically used us through competition to learn the business. Yeah,
he endured going and taking the ride with us and listening to Tony Robbins and me yapping and talking, and the same thing with you.
And at the last tournament, Capital Classic, it was two Kasugan warriors fighting for the 40 to 49 overall grand championship. Myself and
wow. Dynamite! That is awesome, and congratulations. I'm sure you won.
Yes.
Only because you knew what Dean was going to do. Now, that's not the point. The point is that I feel really happy, honored, and even grateful that New York is being represented to the fullest, because one of the forefathers of that was a little kid named the Deadly Shark. And in addition to that, there was only a handful of other people. Let's give some credit to the first time you went to a national tournament. Back then it was Karate Illustrated days, I believe. You had, it was the U.S. Open, it was a Battle of Atlanta. And how the heck did you get a Stars and Stripes? Let's talk about that.
Whew. We saw that uniform. First time we saw that uniform, my dad and I, we saw it being worn by George Chung from California. So we did some research and found out that the only way to get that uniform, they didn't make them in kid size at the time. The smallest size was a size 4, and we got it out of California from the company called KI. So we ordered the uniform, we ordered the big uniform, the smallest adult uniform.
We're having a little technical difficulty right now, but we're back. I think we're back. So I think you went into the twilight zone, because we heard you act like that for a few seconds. So, but we did hear this. KI uniform, California, George Chung influence, size 4 being the smallest.
Yeah, size 4 was the smallest, so we ordered it from California, from KI. And we had to tailor it to fit me, because they didn't make kid size at the time. So once we saw that, we wanted to, we were always trying to be different. So we used to always wear red uniforms in New York. Everybody wore either black or white, mostly white. And we started wearing the red. But when we went to the tournament and we saw George Chung with that Stars and Stripe uniform, my dad said we had to get it. We had to get it. So we did some research and made it happen.
So, guys, listen, those of you who are listening who give me credit for the Stars and Stripes uniform, understand that Mr. Benz was wearing it before me, and he was also doing musical forms before me. Yes, I was one of the people. However, no, in New York City, a gentleman slightly younger than me with a bigger afro, well, I didn't have an afro, it's just about the same, literally was the first one to do musical forms and wear the Stars and Stripes uniform. Have you ever thought about that? Because it's a fact, buddy.
Yeah, that was 1980 and 1981. I was like 11, 12 years old.
Well, let's talk about what actually happened in the first events that you went to at the time, Karate Illustrated ratings. Who did you see, and what was the impact after that?
Competing as a junior or competing as an adult?
I'm talking about back in the beginning.
The first
time, had hair. When you still had hair, man.
Well, the first time I went to U.S. Open. That was 1979, and I actually competed in the juniors division, the kids division, and that's when they were giving out 7-foot trophies. and I took first in sparring, and I took like a second and a third in weapons and forms. And then the following year, we went to the Diamond Nationals, but instead of competing in the junior division, that's when we competed in the men's divisions. There was only 2 kids at the time competing nationally in the adult division. That was myself and Ernie Reyes Jr. And
that was the thing. You see, I used to describe Garth Biz as the Ernie Reyes Jr. of the East Coast, because realistically, that's exactly absolute truth. These gentlemen compete in the open form division, except that you follow it and it help you flip and stuff like that. 1981 was the first time that I actually went to the U.S. Open along with Jonas Nunes. So, again, slightly behind you, but still on the right track.
Yeah, and we went to the Diamond Nationals, and I competed against, the top competitors: George Chung, John Chung, Gary Michak, Charlie Lee, Keith Hirabashi, the Cook brothers. I think it was the Cook brothers. No, not Cook brothers. The Orr brothers. Was it the Orr brothers?
Tony and Corey Orr. Yeah,
Tony and Corey Orr. John Fournette, Gary Michak, Glenn Hart. A lot of top names.
Dale Kirby probably did the weapons form in the team. Listen, bottom line is that you're mentioning right now the people who I have on the list, God willing, they're still alive. I'm going to be interviewing them. Did you even see this guy, or at least heard of a dude named Keith Vitale?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
famous pump sidekick.
Well, Keith Vitale literally did a 2-hour power talk with us on Sunday night.
Oh, great. Looking forward
and broke down the history, how the national circuit started. He literally broke down exactly what happened when the national circuit started. I definitely want to listen to, guys, because those of you guys who play baseball, whether you're playing baseball now or years ago, you still know who Dr. J is. Well, in the sport karate world, we do not know our predecessor. So one of the jobs that we have here, and years ago, Master Benz obviously helped me with us, regardless of the name of the team, we always have been together. And literally, we want to make sure that people understand that we're just standing on the shoulders of giants. If we listen to Master Benz, all he's doing is speaking very excited because as a competitor, we were first fans. Is that correct, sir?
Definitely. We were definitely a fan. All those people that I named, I was fans of. I was really, every time George Chung competed, I was right by his ringside. And at the time, he used to do hard style, he used to do musical, and he used to do soft style. And sometimes he used to spar.
Yeah, quite a really good fighter that people don't realize. The West Coast Demo team in itself were great fighters. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Let's talk about what happened in terms of your confidence level once you came back, and mention some of the tournaments in New York and some of your so-called, you mentioned classmates. We forgot John, by the way, but that's a whole other thing. He was a little older than you, but definitely in the same Ketsugan leadership there from the bottom up, which is kind of cool, But let's talk about some of the competitors. Again, your mindset after you came back from over there, some of the tournaments, and maybe some of your competitors in the New York, New Jersey area.
Well, we realized that we had to make adjustments as far as our competition forms. We were doing our kata form. And our style, Japanese Ketsugan, we had very short forms. So, and we noticed that a lot of traditional Shotokan or Goju stylists, they had the same thing. So we had to do something to stand out more than our competitors here locally. So we did a lot of combination forms. So we didn't really create a lot of forms in the beginning. We just combined forms, and then later on we actually created our own forms just for competition. And that's one of the things that we had to do, because I used to go up against a guy named Euro Dorsey from Harlem Goju. I used to go up against a guy named Benjamin Allen from Bronx Shotokan. I think it was Derek Williams was his instructor. And also there's a guy, Eddie Bowes Jr. from Jersey. And those guys were sharp in their forms. And also George Creighton Jr., his famous father, senior. He had a extremely tight.
Well, 1 second. We got to get technical. It's George Creighton the third because Junior is the father, believe it or not. But that's another thing.
Right.
But this is the bottom line. New York had its own flavor and style. New Jersey also, and they already have very similar to you people. See, since there was less divisions, you had more competition, and those people who were winning were obviously being recognized.
Yeah,
all these big
juniors.
schools, the juniors and peewees got props, but the juniors were the ones that are going to be future adult instructors. Let's talk about someone like that too, because I think that what happened, well, these were your competitors. You hit them with the longest form, probably in New York history besides the Kung Fu form. Talk about that a little bit.
That form, the first form that was called, we called it Kasugan Warrior. It was over 3 minutes long. That was a long form. That was one of the first forms that we my father and I and John Jackson, we created strictly for competition. And that's when they started doing, actually giving the kids like overall grand championships for katas. So we had to do something different because, like I said, Benjamin Allen was sharp. Doing the Shotokan forms. Euro Dorsey was sharp doing his Goju forms. George Creighton III was sharp doing his Kung Fu forms. So we had to do something different to stand out. And one of the things we did, besides wearing a different color uniform, was also creating that form, Kasugan Warrior. And we enhanced it again when we put it to music. We did it to the original Rocky music. And then later on we did it to William Tell Overture, the Lone Ranger.
Again, giving some credit and props to George Chung. That's where I got the salute from, by the way.
Yeah.
So you guys know. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, but at the same time, this was the first time a lot of people were seeing the revolution, or evolution, I should say, of sport karate, at least in the New York area. And for whatever it's worth, at the time, again, I know who you were before you knew who I was, but when was the first time that you knew who the hell I was and what was happening there?
It was in the junior division. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't remember the exact tournament, but you were competing against my brother, John Jackson. And that's when I first saw you sparring, I think it was, and then later on in forms, because you was always traveling with your partner, Tony Morrison, and I actually competed against Tony Morrison one time. As I forgot, it was a tournament for another grand championship for juniors, and so that was one of the first times I saw both of you guys.
Yeah, Tony Morrison absolutely was one of my. Well, it was interesting because he was a guy who, Tony looked mean, So I tell everybody how the majority of the people that I competed against, I was scared, before I fought because they just looked mean or tough. Reggie McGee and that whole army, when you're going against Euro Dorsey, how many people were screaming from Harlem, "Go Jew"?
It was a lot. It was definitely a lot.
These guys just go to tournaments. Like, let's mention some of those historical tournaments, and without, of course, excluding the two that your father, or I should say, your father promoted, and you probably ran half the time.
Right.
And mention some of the people that came down because, guys, again, the purpose of these power talks is to share the history or the herstory, the truth. It's not something that just started a few days ago. It's something that's been around for decades, and we are absolutely either pioneers and legends, a lot of these guys. Even if you're spectators, thanks for watching. When it's all said and done, we are all part of an industry and a culture that's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, definitely. We had, at that time, KI, Karate Illustrated, was the rating system, the independent rating magazine that rated the different tournaments. And in order for your tournament to be considered a top tournament, an A-rated, just one single A, not like 6 different A's, but just one single A rated, you had to have a minimum of 10 national competitors. And that could have been forms competitors, sparring competitors, men or women. And at the last big one my dad had, we had 13. We had Steve Nasty Anderson, we had Billy Blanks, we had Cynthia Rothrock, we had John Chung, Charlie Lee, Dennis Brown, all these current or former promoters that used to come to my dad's tournament and compete. We had Joey Shiflett, we had a ton of people, Stuart Kwan, I think I said Cynthia Rothrock already.
Was that the tournament over? It was that. Well, 1 second. Was that the tournament over at like Westbury or what the heck was that? It was.
We had Westbury was the last one. But prior to that, we had at Kenosha High School. They were there
for many years.
Kenosha High School was there. We had at Bishop. At first, we started at Bishop Ford. The two biggest ones I think was at Kenosha High School and Christ the King High School.
Well, I remember being in the majority of those events, but the one, and I was right with Woodbury, was when I actually fought Nasty Anderson. I wish that Dad could find some of those freaking videos because there's some classics. So not only were these people competing, but you also had guys like Bronson Lee. I mean, I should say Bronson Lee. Carter Wong, who was in the 18 Bronze Men, and also Tokyo and Little China, Big Trouble in Little China.
Yep. Yeah, he was the center referee for a few of the tournaments. Actually had the honor of training with him a few times, and when he stayed in New York for a few times in Chinatown. That was an experience. You know,
I've never seen. I only sang through. He had nothing like that.
Yeah, he was something else. He was something else. And you know, we built off the tournaments that we used to go to. We used to go to the Ying Yi tournaments by the ruling family at Bishop Ford High School. We used to go to the Battle of the Zodiac Sign, which was Fred Hamilton's tournament at Springfield Gardens. We used to go to those tournaments, and my dad got ideas from these tournaments to create his own. He just wanted to make it bigger. He didn't want to keep it just in New York. He wanted to invite. He wanted other fighters to come realize that New York had some top fighters also. You know, we had the Errol Bennis, we had the Abdul Matakabir, Sheldon Wilkins, we had I remember Ron Henderson, which is a guy that hardly gets mentioned, but he was one of the fastest heavyweights I used to see compete in years. So we wanted to see these national fighters who we saw in the magazines come to New York and you know, realize that New York had some people to reckon with also. So that he built upon all those tournaments. Hello?
The host has joined the conference.